It's like waiting for paint dry, Ron. Good evening and welcome to Open Minds live chat show on Sunday night. And waiting when you press the button to go live, and it goes round and round, and it is like waiting for paint to dry. I have an amazing guest tonight. We've rescheduled due to circumstances out of my control a few weeks ago. And I welcome to Open Minds Chat Show, Ron Halliday. Welcome, Ron.
Hello. Nice to be here again.
And we've got a mainlander with me tonight, so we're not doing USA time or any other time, Australian time. We're in the same time zone tonight, aren't we, Ron?
We are indeed, yes.
We are indeed.
We haven't drifted apart.
No, we haven't. Oh, we're not time traveling. Anyway, so Ron has been on my Inception podcast where he did a wonderful presentation. I call him the UFO hunter, whether he calls himself that or not, but that's what I call him. And the paranormal hunter, some amazing experiences Ron's had. So tonight I thought, let's have a conversation about where did it all begin, Ron? The paranormal and how it affected you and changed you over the decades. Not that you're elderly, Ron. You know, yeah. I'm the elderly.
Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's start the conversation off. So where did it all begin, this quest of yours?
Yeah, well, I mean, it began a long time ago, really, when I was, as a child. My dad, he was interested in psychical research. He was a scientist, but he was interested in psychical research.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother, she came from up north Aberdeen way, and she was actually a medium, attended a spiritualist church, and she was forever seeing spirits of the dead. So she had that. So I had that kind of background,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I didn't know exactly when I was just a child what my granny was doing, but I was aware there was a kind of, sort of aura or something being slightly different from, the everyday reality. So I kind of read, read one or two books when I was young, and kind of scared me, I must admit, when I was that age, But I was fascinated by it. So, but when I got a bit, I wasn't really, I would say, I did some of the Ouija board stuff when I was a teenager with other people,
No, that's amazing. I mean, I remember when I was very young, obviously being, labeled a medium, seeing, the dead, even though they don't like that word. I remember doing a Ouija board. I mean, I must have brought in the whole of the universe in at that point and never did it again. Someone close to me did the Ouija board and became severely mentally ill. And that really pissed me off. And I thought, the Ouija board, as kids, didn't we get it for Christmas? Did you get yours for Christmas? I did.
No, did you? No. I was a bit.
Love it for Christmas. I mean, she already thought I was a demon incarnate. So I think, But so when you practice, before we go any further, because your mum was a medium, because there's a good
grandmother.
Oh, your grandmother was a medium. It's always the grandmothers that are witch. Hi, Rosie. Rosie's in the house. She's my witch. She's definitely a witch. She's in the room. When you practiced the Ouija board, did anything happen to you?
I don't know, Gloria, to be honest about it. I mean, I think what the impact it did had on me, I was quite fascinated by, some of the material that was coming through, because there's always that thing when you do it with people your own age, somebody, as it were, trying to steer things, there's always a bit of that. So there's always some kind of doubts, but, some of the things that came through, kind of impressed me. But I mean, I didn't really carry on with that. I mean, I kind of grew out of that bit, I went to university and all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I was, I suppose, in my early 20s that I got back into it. I started reading up on witchcraft. My wife gave me a book on witchcraft and that kind of...
Your wife gave you a book on witchcraft. Now,
you've
got to look at Ron's timeline here and why he got into the field he did. Grandmother's a medium. He played with the Ouija board. Then his wife bought him a book on witchcraft. I can't get the word out tonight. Witchcraft. And do continue, Ron. Do continue.
Yeah, so so I actually became interested in the whole subject of witchcraft, and became quite interested in it. I was a practicing or aspiring witch or anything. It
Ooh,
was
two
it was
witches.
just
Come on, Ron. What's the opposite to a witch? What's the male witch? Is it a warlock or a?
warlock. Yeah, yeah.
So you were an aspiring warlock, were you?
Well, I was interested in the whole subject,
Mm,
but I mean, I didn't actually, if you like, look to join any
mm,
kind of group or anything. I wasn't aware really of what was going on in that kind of community. But I was fascinated by it,
mm.
and obviously by all the historical
Yeah.
accounts, the discussion about the reality or not
Hmm.
of 17th century, 16th century witchcraft. That quite interested me.
Mm.
But I got into other things. I mean, I had an interest in poltergeist ghosts, but I kind of got into the UFOs thing in a really quite roundabout way because I saw UFO reports in the papers,
Yeah.
and I actually wondered if, I'd read a lot about witchcraft, knew where there was a lot of witchcraft cases, and I just wondered, was there some link between witchcraft, people's belief or,
Mm.
attack on witches and, UFO sightings.
Yeah.
Through that, I got in touch with a chap called Campbell. He was a skeptic, but he was a member of Befora, and met up with him and chatted about the whole the UFO thing. So I
Mm.
kind of got into it in a roundabout kind of way. And I suppose like a lot of people, I was skeptical about UFOs initially, and I gave them all credibility to ghosts and poltergeists. But
Yeah.
when I started meeting UFO witnesses, and I kind of got into all that bit and heard what their accounts of their experiences, obviously that changed my mind.
Yeah.
And I thought, gosh, there is actually something in it. I mean, can we actually split up this whole area? I mean, even witches, but ghosts, poltergeists, the whole paranormal experience, and I began to see or think, this stuff was all linked up in some kind of way.
Yeah. Can I ask you there? I mean, most people, myself included. I mean, I was born weird, a witch, like Rosie in the room, and your grandmother. No, I'm not a witch. Rosie's a witch. Can I ask you, when you started to get into the UFO sightings and you started to take witness statements, did they mention that after having such contact, whether it was just witnessing a UFO, that the paranormal started to happen around them that hadn't been there before at all?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I mean, obviously, I think it varies from witness to witness
Mm,
in terms of how people see their experience. Some people think it's amazing.
mm,
Some people a bit disturbed by it. But I do think people. I mean, maybe it's because having had that experience, people start to open up a little bit more to the
mhm,
to the whole paranormal, if you
mhm,
like, say
mhm,
scene, just to use that word, but the
mhm,
whole paranormal, subject and everything that's going on around them. But I
mhm.
do believe it. As I've said, I mean, it does, vary. I mean, some people are totally put off by it because they don't like the idea
Yeah.
of something that they've seen disturbing,
Mhm,
disturbing their everyday life.
mhm,
It's certainly, I think people get get varied. I mean, I don't know what other people's feelings are about that, but I
mhm.
mean, I certainly feel there's some people. I mean, they can even get a bit obsessed with the whole thing.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen to people.
Mhm,
Had an experience. They get obsessed with the whole thing,
mhm.
and but I mean, yeah, I mean, in principle, I think it does. These events do affect people, one way or the other. But I mean, there is an effect, definitely.
I mean, I mean, even recently, I mean, obviously through all the podcasts and the shows we all do out there, and we meet new people, and many of them, they talk about they see a UFO or they experience some form of contact, um, even if it is just visual, and they think nothing's happened.
Mm.
Um, they think nothing's happened because they didn't see a being, or they don't recall going on. Something's already happened, because if you've witnessed it, you've been allowed to witness it. That's already happened. And then they said, like, their psychic abilities kick in, or they have movement in the house, or they call it the poltergeist, or spirit, or something paranormal, lights, cupboards opening, doors. So I've been hearing a lot of that from those that are coming out the closet now and saying, because it's okay now to come out and say it, are saying these things happened afterwards. So I think there's a correlation, and we'll get back to your timeline. But in the past, would you agree that you used to have ufology in one box, spirits, mediumship in another box, witches in another box, and our favorite, the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and all the rest of it in another box? But now it's all under one umbrella. There's a connection, is there not? Does this resonate with you at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you're right. One time there was UFOs. People were interested in UFOs, had UFO experiences, and things were separated out. But I mean, I certainly believe that in some way all these experiences are connected. And when you get individuals maybe having different types of experiences, like UFO sighting, seeing a ghost, then you have to say to yourself, well, why is that? There must be some connection between all these things. However hard that is to work out, or however difficult that might be to accept. But I do believe, that is, an explanation to why we get all this range of events. I mean, yeah, there's a range of events, but they're all, if you like, coming from one common source.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for those that are born into the world labeled medium, so that psychic, so they've already got a door open to other experiences than what this reality offers us in 3D. There are others that haven't got that, so they haven't come in with that sort of psychic ability. But as soon as they spot a craft, that opens a door for them to come in with the psychic ability. And I'm sure there's many other ways. I mean, I'm aware of that sometimes if there's a death in the family, that does it. There's a near-death experience, that's another door there. So there's multiple. So I'm perceiving it now. There's multiple doors to encounter and experience this reality. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that resonates with me. I mean, I would say, sometimes people happens in reverse. I mean, people have, a poltergeist or ghost experience in the house and then see a UFO. So, I mean, I think, or have a UFO experience. So I think, I mean, these things can come from different directions. And again, which suggests somehow, I mean, there is a connection. I mean, why would you have a poltergeist disturbance in the house and then have a UFO experience? It must be because something's happening, whether it's to the individual, whether it's happening to, the aura or whatever. So, I mean, I do think these things are kind of definitely linked up in some sort of way. And you might say to yourself, well, that individual, for whatever reason, somebody's been able to see something, that previously they couldn't see. And because all these events are connected, they start to see a range of things. And to my mind, that makes a bit of sense. I mean, I know there's some people say, well, that isn't the case because we are being visited by aliens from distant planets, So, I know there's from some of the UFO people, there's obviously some skepticism about a link between UFO and ghosts, for example. But, I mean, if you accept that, this is, if you like, something that's there, that's sort of in the other world or whatever, rather than UFOs coming from, X light years away, which I'm not saying they don't, but I mean, to my mind, makes a bit more sense to say, well, people's UFO experience is somehow linked to the ghost and poltergeist experience.
No, that resonates with me. I mean, I remember way back in the day, like hundreds of years ago, I'm that old, when obviously I realized the spirits, the midget ones, were actually not midgets. They were small greys. But I had no idea at that point. And I remember when I had a realization, 1987, around about that time, after seeing Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, the cover, after I got over the shock and my world crashed and, just like, I sort of connected with ufology, but they didn't want to know about the experience. Yeah. They didn't want to know about, now I know what to call it, that it sort of like gave a paradigm shift, an expansion of consciousness and knowing that there was more than, and they didn't want to know. Mm-hmm. And I tried and I tried and I tried, and it just wasn't happening. However, when I linked back into the medium groups and the witches, my friends, as you do, we all have witches for friends, like Rosie now, they had no issue with ufology, connecting the two. It was because at that back in, I don't know if it's changed now, but back in the day, it was all about the nuts and bolts. That's what it seemed to be about. Yeah. I'm sure it must have changed by now over the decades. I'm sure that some of them are sort of linked. I mean, if you're doing like collecting data, and you've got all these, beings saying, right, I saw this, then this happened in my house. So you've collected and collated all the data. That's evidence. There you go. That's evidence. So you can't deny it, can you?
No. Yeah.
So are you aware how they think about it today?
I mean, I think there's still a division between some individuals who believe that we are, we're talking nuts and bolts. We are being visited by alien entities, somehow traveling across space or whatever. However, I mean, I think, you can maybe still have alien entities, but we could be talking, for example, about multi-dimensional
Absolutely.
or multi-universe, which certainly might explain some of the way, sometimes UFO sightings are very short, fleeting. Sometimes, in the Bob Taylor case, for example, he could see through part of the spacecraft, and there's occasions where I think I described, and I gave a talk before, people have seen something, a blazing object just coming over their heads and landing, and then nobody else sees it. So, you get all these kind of contradictions, but there might not be contradictions of people are kind of glimpsing into another dimension or into another world or whatever. This might explain some of the anomalies that you get, for example, in UFO sightings.
My personal truth is the craft, because I've been on the craft as well and experienced them for decades. They don't travel faster than the speed of light from somewhere else. There is no somewhere else. It's here. And it's maybe, I suppose, the only analogy I can give you, it's like they've always been here. It's like a veil away, call it another dimension, But the other aspect of it is these beings, the ones that do communicate with them or do have contact, or what you want to call abduction, I think, we all come back realizing that they are spirit beings like us. And there's your first clue there. So they're spirit beings like us. They're just in a different shape and form. So for me, having that understanding that I could never see them traveling, people, and I would hear the ufologists go, well, to travel this far, you have fast, and you have to go through the Van Allen belt, and I'm going, what are you talking about? It's quantum physics, the wave, the particle, it's a wave comes in, a particle. It's there. So I'm in agreement with you on that. And not many people have this conversation to try and clarify, because someone who's unaware of UFOs, if they only know what was said back in the day and the ridicule, they think it's nuts and bolts and it's a joke. That hasn't been revised publicly, unless you get onto the great podcasts and things like that. Like Forbidden Knowledge News or something like that, or Omar and Rob's, Full Spectrum Universe and Watchers Talk. They have all this on there, but out on the old mainstream. That never came through. So let's carry on with your timeline. So you now, because I know you go into the paranormal with Loch Ness and everything else going as well. So you get into ufology. You take the statements. So where does that lead? But more importantly, had that changed you, the Ron you by then?
Yeah, I mean, it changed me in the sense I certainly became more aware, of what a strange world, what a strange universe that we live in, and that to have these experiences, in a sense, was out of the ordinary. But in another way, it was quite ordinary because there were so many people having, for example, UFO experiences, and then on top of that, there were people having ghost experiences, you know, large numbers of them. So yeah, so it opened things out for me, and it made me, I thought I want to document some of this material because I'd heard so many strange um, events, being told to me by perfectly rational people about the kind of things they'd experienced, which were, if you like, totally out of this world. So I was keen to start documenting these properly and putting together. So, my feeling was, well, people should know about these things, let's have them, in black and white so people can actually have the opportunity to assess things for themselves, because most people aren't going to go out and investigate ghosts or poltergeists. I mean, most people are not going to go to spiritualist medium, if you like. So I mean, here's a chance for people to actually take a look at it and at least be aware of the kind of out of the ordinary events that people are experiencing really on a daily basis.
I mean, do you think a lot to do with how they feel about it is, we're of similar ages, we're a couple of 100 years old each. Back in the day, we had fairy stories and mythological stories of ghosts, and we were always told it wasn't true. Yes. It was make believe. Now, obviously, we all know now, majority of it was true. Like the elementals, the fae, and angels, and dragons, and all that. And that sort of goes in the collective subconscious that it's all poo-poo. And then obviously then you get the controlling factor of the media way back, pooing it all the time, ridiculing. So it's whether they know it or not, they have this belief system that it's not true. It's ridiculed. And I think, if you're steeped in that sort of controlled belief system, then you're never gonna accept what is until it hits you in the face, till you move into that house or you see that craft. Either that may do it, or you may be so scared, I presume, you just don't want to. You don't want to experience that. You don't want to know because your beliefs are so strong, and they haven't really caught up. So, I mean, for me, it changed just in 1987. That Witness Triber book, that changed the whole paradigm shift. Everything fell apart from that time. Have you reached at this stage so far that you've shared? I mean, had you by then witnessed a UFO, or had you had such a shift in you, or anything happen in you that led you down the rest of the path that you went?
I mean, I think, it was, something that accumulated over time. And I mean, I didn't have any kind of personal revelation experience until I was well into the whole UFO paranormal thing. I think I discussed last time when I had experiences with the medium Ray Todd. But I was really well into it by then, although I hadn't actually written any material about it. So it just accumulated. I mean, one thing on top of another. Meeting mediums, speaking to mediums, hearing what they had to say, and so on, speaking to witnesses, getting their accounts of their experiences, with people saying, I didn't believe until I saw this. And I think that, that is something about this, is that, it often takes people's experience, an actual event,
Mm-hmm.
to convince them that there is something, going on that is out of this world, that can't be easily explained, that isn't a part of our rational everyday world. And I
Yeah.
think that's obviously disturbing to some people.
Mm.
And as I said, it's exciting or revelatory to other people, just
So,
depending on the personality.
sorry, I want to catch you on that one. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like you to share about the UFO experience and that with the medium. But so before that come along, by then you already knew it to be true yourself, even without an experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
wonderful in itself. I wish other would be like that, but there you go.
Yeah.
So you knew it to be true by the evidence that was coming to you, research. And at this point, you hadn't yet written your book, the first book. You hadn't done that at this point.
I
Okay.
hadn't done it at that point. No,
Right.
I hadn't done it.
So was the medium before the book? Was the experience with the medium before the book?
The experience with the medium was about, it was before I wrote
Right.
my first
Okay.
book.
There's a reason I'm asking. I'm trying to get the timeline here. So
Yeah, of course.
could you share again on this show what happened with the medium?
Well, with the medium, Ray Todd, I mean, he was bringing through a whole range of, figures of the dead. And among that, there were various alien-like entities
Mm-hmm.
of various descriptions, some fairly human-looking, some almost, lizard-like in a way. So there was a real, combination of people that I saw, including obviously a lot of human beings. Human beings made up the greatest number, but there was a significant number of alien figures. And it was, excuse me, because of, I mean, this was quite revelatory from my perspective, because I began to wonder, well, what's going on here? Right, there's dead human beings, they've got spirits. If they're dead aliens, if they exist, why shouldn't they have spirits?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, gives you the impression, well, the universe is actually made up of entities, maybe of different kinds, but all sharing some basic common factor,
Mm-hmm.
like a spirit. But also then began to wonder after these experiences, I kind of formulated while I was there that, what were we seeing in other dimensions? Were these alien entities that were coming through, were they coming from other dimensions? And, in a sense, we were sharing space,
Mm-hmm.
space with other universes, or, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, opened up a whole range of perspectives,
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, and I still think about it
Yeah.
on a regular
I mean,
basis.
it is. I mean, I've playing the role of the medium. I experienced it a couple of years ago. How long ago now? That I'd gone back in because I don't. I'm what you call a rescue medium. It's totally different. I don't do like platform and things. Never done that.
Yeah.
I was in a group. On a Zoom group in the lockdown, and I was getting in. I thought, and so I just did a bit now and again, keep me alive. And then I had to stop because the majority were the spirit world coming in, just walking through the front room. But then all of a sudden, what you call ET, these dimensional beings were coming in too, and the vibration, the vibration was different to the spirit. It was a lot stronger. And they kept coming in, and eventually, the message come across that put that type of mediumship on hold for the moment, please. So I had started to experience like your medium had experience with you, and it took me down another timeline. However, then way later on, I heard of another medium that brought through. Now, listen to this, guys. I didn't experience it. It was told to me secondhand, so I can't validate it. Why would someone lie? But I can see how it's possible. Said that she brought through this spirit of this young girl for the mother, and everything was fine. The evidence was ever. And what was the message? And this female spirit said, I'm now going to go off and experience being, I think it was a Palladian or something. That really gives your mind some expansion. She'd made a choice from that dimension. I want to go and experience being an ET. Then a year later, whatever, then I kept hearing very similar stories, of spirit, what we call spirit that comes through is ET, really ET, not so much spirit. And so then this conversation started to go. So I found that wonderful what you've just shared, because I've touched upon it personally myself, but with others as well. So we've categorized spirit, and dimensional. I call them dimensional beings now, because ETs, they're not extraterrestrial. They're not off. They're here. Maybe it's just what they're presenting. It's just spirit playing the role of that. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that is a possibility. When you start looking at the range, for example, of alien entities that have been reported or people say they've encountered, including the range of UFOs that people have reported, there's no common. Well, I'm saying there's no. Well, maybe I'm going too far to say there's no common, but there's a huge number of differences. I mean, you're getting small beings, you're getting tall, thin beings, you're getting all kinds of people, beings that look like lizards, or you get, look humanoid, or even
angelic.
Or angelic.
Angelic through as well a lot at the moment, right? Yeah.
But I've asked myself before, well, how is that? And as you say, is it because we are just being presented with these entities in this way, and this isn't what they look like, this isn't exactly what they are? And if you go back in time, we'll raise the issue of fairies again, because this kind of fascinates me.
Yeah.
Because, if you look at fairies, well, they came in different shapes and sizes. Yeah. Some looked human, some looked completely non-human. They lived underground, they could walk through walls. I'm not saying there's direct comparison, but there are similarities.
There are a lot. I mean, recently I'm hearing on other podcasts, and I've had it on my shows. They're now talking about these ET tricksters, and I'm going, well, that's the Fae. They're the tricksters from back in the day, were they not? The tricksters. I mean, come on. My non-favorite is the leprechauns, because my father told everyone and me that I was a changeling. But as you do to your children, because it's so loving and kind. But back in the day, you said the fairies, the Fae, and or elementals, whatever label, there were all different types, shapes, and form. They did magic. They appeared. They disappeared. They flew. They went through walls, through trees, and there were tricksters. Now, today, I'm hearing a lot of people talk about these tricksters that are saying they're appearing one way, but that's not who they are. I'm thinking it could be the spirit world all along, just doing all for the experience of it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely heard that, and I think, well, it does explain some incidents that go on. I mean, I think we're kind of fumbling our way, if I can use that, towards some kind of revelation, if you like, so that everybody will accept and realize what's going on. So I mean, to my mind, that could be part of it. And I just mentioned the fairies again, because I mean, they did actually abduct human beings, as we well know from past tradition.
Yeah, they do it. They did a lot of abduction, I'll have you know. And according to my Irish father, they abducted his child and put me, a Fae, in place of it. There was we had all them stories of abducting humans, did we not? I mean, come on, you've got to see the similarities here. So maybe just through the evolution of the human experience, we've gone to that. But even you go way back into the ancient times, all the way through to UFOs, how they've even changed in appearance, have they not? Yeah. I mean, I had an experience a couple of days ago, which I mentioned to you off camera.
Yeah.
And I haven't had one of these experiences for a long time. It must be a year, which is a long time for me.
Mm-hmm.
The actual UFO. And it was a totally, no, actually, tell a lie. I had one about 3-4 months ago. That's a lie. And that one was a different type of UFO. But this one, I couldn't believe what it was like. It was so different. So going back from the beginning with UFOs or with, let's say, dimensional beings, we've just correlated with the fairies and what they did and what we now call, or someone's decided to call them. Who called them aliens? Who called them extraterrestrial? I mean, actually, I don't know who gave them that name, and maybe they took on that form, but maybe they still are the Fae. They are the spirit world. We don't know that. No one knows that.
No,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. We can have various theories about what's taking place, and people through their own experiences can possibly interpret it, in different ways. I mean, somebody like yourself who's had a load of experiences will obviously, if you like, be able to get a better picture of what's taking place. But people who maybe just had one experience, they were, well, yeah, they saw a spaceship. So obviously we must be being visited by beings from distant planets, So they maybe just get a little bit of the picture, but if they've got a broader part of the picture, then they'd be able to, maybe they see it in a different way. And
I agree. Do you remember what was that? Was it? I don't know if it was the Amazon. I can't recall, but it was in that a good film. It was The Secret many years ago, where the native people had never seen a ship before, and they were looking at the ocean, and the ship was there, but they couldn't see it. They couldn't see the ship. But what the shaman saw was the waves. The waves. I watch us talk. The waves were changing, so they knew something was there coming into their. But they physically, the ship was there, Spanish, but they couldn't see it. And the shaman first noticed an energy change with the sea or whatever, and then he saw the ship. It come into the reality. Into the 3D reality or the matrix, and then others saw it. Do you see what I'm coming to here? Without using that analogy with that of whether it's spirit world or ET or craft, does that sort of make sense? If it's not in your perception and it comes into your perception maybe in a shock, all right, you could have post-traumatic stress disorder. Many people do, but to me it seems like it's just repeating itself, but in different shape and form. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody says there's been more and more UFO sightings. I just wonder whether that is because people's awareness is actually growing, because the people having an experience, they become aware that maybe these things do happen, they do exist, and suddenly, because they're being a bit more open-minded about these events, they start to have a similar experience. But I think, if you look about it, consciousness, I think consciousness of the paranormal is definitely increasing. I think there's more and more people, if you like, being more open-minded in terms of the whole paranormal phenomenon. So I think, certainly something's going on there in people's consciousness across the world.
I agree. I mean, it's quite, I mean, look how we're talking now. I mean, you couldn't even talk about like this 10 years ago, really. Without being ridiculed. You couldn't. So, and most people I speak to, you can go anywhere, and if anyone finds out, you speak to dead people, they're on you like a car bonnet. And you go, oh no, not again. And it's quite the norm now. And obviously, we don't get burnt at the stake no more, which is like Rosie. We don't get burnt at the stake no more. So that does make a big difference. So, I mean, I'm just looking at, through your personal life experience, how you came. I love it. I mean, I had Michael Feely last night on Inception and his journey and how it changed him and how it expanded his consciousness. And with you, I find other people's experiences really fascinating. But
Mm.
and then the more that I hear, the more that I can correlate. There's an inference. It's a very similar experience, but slightly different, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
you've come from a different road than I came from.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, which is like you had a medium grandma, but you didn't get into that, but you came through another door through
Mm.
their
Mm.
experiences. So
Mm.
anyway, we've got to the point, we've gone past the medium, we've got these beings coming through. Do you remember what type of beings came through to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, there, you know, as I mentioned, there were several kinds. You know,
Mm,
there were ones that looked a bit lizard-like,
mm,
some, you know, a kind of lizardy skin.
yeah,
There's ones that looked almost sort of ape-like, but I mean, the thing I'd emphasize is that they all looked intelligent.
yeah.
You know,
They have a message at all.
and there was no message. I mean, they just, you know, there was no communication in the sense anybody spoke. But I mean, they just kind of looked at you as if to say, "Well, here I am. You know,
Wow.
what do you make? What do you make of this? You know."
Oh,
And I
shit.
don't know if they're looking. Yeah, I mean, I've got the impression they were particularly interested in me. You know,
Mm,
I think they were interested in me looking at them,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
know, and just
Like,
if they
notice
were,
me. We are here. I mean, come on, Ron. That must have been a paradigm shift for you. It had to be.
well, absolutely. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was mind blowing. Absolutely mind blowing. You know.
like blowing. I mean,
And yeah, and you know, you know, if you've been honest about it, you go away from these things and you say,
mm,
"Did that happen?" You
yeah,
know, I
yeah.
mean, to be truthful, you know, did that happen? You know, I can't believe that happened. Did it happen? And then I thought, yeah, that did happen. I know that because I went back, you know, the
Yeah.
following week and it happened again. And you know,
Wow.
other people saw these things as well. You know,
Mm,
but I was the only one who actually went, you know, over a couple of years and documented each particular
yeah.
case, but only because Ray asked me to.
Mm,
And you know, and I'm glad he did. You know, he had that foresight to
yeah.
see that I would actually make some use of it eventually. But yeah, I mean, you know, my mind was, but it still is. I mean, my mind is
Well, it's
still.
still. I mean, even for me, I have no idea what. I mean, I had the UFO experience, what we call UFO, a couple of days ago, which has totally changed my life. I can't
Mm,
even. Whatever's happened, and when that happens, I can't even compute it
mm,
at the moment.
mm.
But so would I be presumptuous, or would I be right in saying that from the experience with these beings, then you wrote the first book, or then you got into
Yeah, I think that's what tipped me into, you
yeah,
know, finally into doing it.
yeah,
Um, I thought, you know, gosh, there's really, you know, something going on here. I really should actually document
yeah,
all these
mm,
incidents that people have told me about. Otherwise, you just get lost, you
yeah,
know, and they disappear. And you maybe get a bit in the paper, but a lot of it isn't in the newspapers, you know,
mm,
because a lot of it, I mean, a lot of it is varied. Maybe, you know, well, there's some, put in inverted commas, exciting events where people encounter alien entities, but there
mm,
are other ones where people, you know, see a spacecraft
mm,
and describe it at close quarters. You
mm,
know, again, I mean, I'm not saying it's run of the mill, but I mean, it is nonetheless fascinating that people have these kind of encounters, you know, just
mm,
seeing things. And
mm,
so I thought, you know, this really needs to go down, and you know, let people see what's actually happening. You know, in Scotland, they're focused on because that's obviously where I was based,
yeah,
and could you know, actually interview the people, go to the places where it happened, and get a good picture of it. But I
mm,
kind of correlated to that with, you know, incidents in England and, you know, and in the USA in
mm,
particular. So I mean, I was trying to fix what was happening here,
mm.
my own experiences into a kind of you know, a construction,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, I'm
just
with
to
you.
show how things fitted together.
Hmm. I mean, so, oh, by the way, do promote the name of that book, please. Go on, promote it. What's it called?
Well, the last one I did was
Promote. Sell yourself.
uh, Alien Spirits.
Alien
That
spirits.
Alien Spirits. That's the one where I discuss and recount the experiences I had with Ray Todd, the medium.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, you know, I wrote that, Gloria, just, I mean, not because I thought everybody was going to say, wow, imagine all that happening, because I know, sure, you know, you're going to get doubters.
Mm.
Totally understand that. You know, people don't have to accept, you know,
Yeah.
what I saw. But I put that, I just put it down honestly, as I actually saw it at the time, and said, well, look, you can, you know, you can have a look at this, see what you feel about it. You know, what do you think? I mean, are there other people out there, you know, like yourself, Gloria, have had these
Yeah.
experiences, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, for some people it will resonate. For other people, they'll probably think, oh, well, you know.
Well, hopefully they can open up the realms of possibility. What I love about the title of that book is it's called Alien Spirits. And it brings it together, the spirit world, with these aliens that have been labeled. I mean, who called them aliens?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
they're
absolutely.
not extraterrestrial. They're in this
Yeah,
dimension, they're in this 3D matrix with us. So they're not outside of us. And if
yeah,
they're consciousness as well, which they are, they can't be external to
yeah,
us, part of the
yeah,
plane. But I love the title, Alien Spirits.
yes,
That to me was just the title itself, where you brought two fields of thought together into one, And I think, I don't know anyone else that's done that actually, Ron, apart from you.
yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Mm.
that, maybe it's possible, but I did that. That title was deliberate, as you've guessed, Gloria,
Yeah.
because you know I was asking this question: was this a spirit of dead aliens, or what was it? You know, they used to say, well, to them, we're the aliens. You
Mm.
know, these other entities, yeah, we're the aliens. So
Well,
maybe
we
it's a
call them
character on our part.
dead, don't we? I mean, every time I say that, the spirit world says we're not dead, and
Mm,
same with
mm,
with what you call the aliens. And I remember years and years ago, I was in a churchyard. I always lived in churchyards. I was sitting having a cup of coffee. The church had a cafe outside, and I was sitting there. I'm going to cut this very short. Anyway, and this young child, they were like 4-year-olds going off to the museum from their school or something like that. They were all marching past this old church on the cobblestones. And
mm,
so I was just sitting there, just chilling, not doing
mm,
anything, but I could hear the little footsteps. It
mm.
was like it became like a drum. So my consciousness shifted
Yeah.
accidentally. But I
Mhm.
heard one boy say to this other little 4-year-old girl, holding her hand, he obviously fancied her, saying, "See those people there? They're dead."
Mm,
As soon as he said that, I don't know what happened in reality, but anyway, it was like the spirit world was all inside of me, and they said, "We are not dead." It was
mm,
like this.
mm,
And I went, and for a period of time, I really thought I was dead because it had come that close, the
mhm,
message to be so strong. And I was sitting there going, "Oh God, I've died." I thought I died sitting at
mm,
this coffee house. And I went, "Oh yeah, they say you go back to the place you frequented the most." And so I
mhm,
knew the process, being a rescue medium, didn't I? So I sat
mm,
there with myself going,
mm,
"Okay, where was the last place you were before you died? Because how did I
mm,
die?" And I knew I had to rescue myself, because that was
mm,
when I thought I had died. I was alive. That's what I did to other spirits. They didn't
mm,
know they'd passed. So I was going through this process, and I was going, and then I went, it gone. I was not dead.
mm,
They were giving me a kick up the backside and a very harsh message to stop saying we're dead.
mhm,
Then subsequently, down the line, I'm fully aware that we don't die. We're eternal beings, and it's a physical
mhm,
body. So I'm going to take that long drawn out analogy there and add it to what people call aliens.
mm,
They're not dead. It's the
mm,
spirit. Is it just the spirit of
mm.
these dimensional beings we're seeing, because
Yeah.
they're not dead?
Mhm,
Um, or is it that or are they still in their alive form? Who
mhm.
knows? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is the fascinating thing
Isn't
that
it?
I mean, I've mulled over, on many occasions. I mean, what is it? Was it spirits of dead aliens? Was this interdimensional beings? What exactly are we dealing with? And I think, I mean, the idea, when you die, you're actually going to another place, if you like, or something else is happening to you as another being in a sense.
Yeah.
It is quite fascinating. So, what becomes of us? I mean, in terms of, is there a transformation, or do we carry on in a similar sort of vein? There's so many questions that interlinked with, what I personally saw and what
Yeah.
the experiences that other people have about things that, you want to come to a conclusion that satisfies everybody. But I
Well,
mean, I think,
I think ultimately it's our individual curiosity, isn't it?
mm,
First, that's first. But I want to throw something into the loop here
mm,
because that's where my mind's going. I'm going to go. Let's go full circle. Well, before we come in on the back of what you just said, before we come into this human experience, where were we there?
mm,
Everyone goes around saying we agreed to this. I call
mm,
myself one of the gods with little g.
mm,
We're one of
mm,
the gods. We came in to have a human experience.
mm,
So we've got to add that one to the equation as well. So we've got a bit of a trilogy here, haven't
yeah,
we? We've
mm,
got the before, the middle, and the after, the
yeah,
three parts.
mm, mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm, yeah,
Which is obviously a very good number to have, a trilogy. Let's
yeah,
do that.
true, yeah,
Um, and then I look at that, and because I have an understanding of, like, I don't believe my truth is not like others. Others say that when you go to sleep at night, you astral project to other
mhm,
worlds. I flip that. I'm from that realm, and I astral travel into the human experience,
mhm,
what we
mhm,
call daytime, yeah. And I
mhm,
basically go home and experience other dimensional worlds, every what we call in the timeline the night one.
mhm,
So then I can say, well, if I'm a spirit, I am a spirit in my dream state. I mean,
mhm,
basically, my identity is not there. The ego identity is not in there. I'm just spontaneously experiencing experiences. And
mhm,
the other day, it just had to be an amazing, you know,
mhm,
craft again, with the information. Um, so to me, on the back of my personal, it's only my truth, not anyone else's truth. With what you've just said and what we spoke about,
mhm,
you know,
mhm,
are they spirit? Are they dead? Are they alive? Then maybe it's just the spirit world actually having this
mhm,
experience, the beings.
mhm.
Does this, have I got you lost, or are you with me on this
No,
one?
no. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think this whole issue of what's happening, where we go. I mean, it gets complicated
Yeah,
because I think again, people have a bit of experience. They have, if you like, one bit of the jigsaw. You know, because they have a certain type of experience.
yeah,
They can connect with certain things. And I
yeah,
can connect certainly with the spirit world. I
mm,
can connect with the fact there may be alien spirits, and because of the experience, I can maybe connect with the idea that there are other dimensions, there are
yeah.
other entities in other dimensions. So, I
Mm.
mean, what was being said here, it could be saying, well, humans and aliens, they are in fact one and the same thing.
One of the
You know,
same thing.
just
Yeah,
that we
we
separated them
could
out.
that. Yes, we could. And why not? Because no one knows the truth, and we're all exploring this. So no one's right, no one's wrong. It's from your own individual personal experience that you're having.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, I do have my major truth is the whole purpose of, if there is a purpose, is this experience is towards self-realization,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
part of self-realization is going through these stages we're going through. I mean,
Mhm.
I said it last night on the show, in the groups that I run. I tell the guys in the group, we are now in the Harry Potter School of Magic, because
Mhm.
it's like magic now.
Mhm.
The beings that we are and what we're experiencing is magical. But
Mhm.
doesn't that, Ron, remind you of the fairies, the fae? You know,
Mhm.
way
Mhm.
back in the day, it's all seems to be interlinked, and I think it's just so wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful too. I think if you think about, well, nobody knows if the universe ends, where it ends. Nobody knows is time infinite.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could all be infinite beings in one sense,
Mm,
just simply moving from
mm,
one universe, one dimension, one experience
Mm.
to the other. You know, people talk about being reincarnated, but they tend to talk about being
Yeah,
reincarnated
yeah,
as somebody from the past as a human being,
yeah.
less being reincarnated as maybe
As a
an alien
spirit.
entity.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
spirit. And also, you know what, I don't purport, it's not in my truth reincarnation. For me, I experience all things at all times in all places
Mm,
because we're all consciousness.
mm,
And then the ones I have heard of way back, they were always reincarnated. They recalled being reincarnated, and they had to be famous. I
yeah.
mean, so many of them were Cleopatra, and so many died on the Titanic. And no
Mm,
one ever come back and said I was a dustman picking up crap off the floor on the streets of London in Victorian time, if you
yeah.
know what I mean.
Right.
And that really poo-pooed it for me because I
Mm,
thought, you know, I'm to me, if it's just not my truth. If
mm,
if you keep coming back for eons to experience
mm,
all things, then
mm,
you would be a poo collector off the Victorian streets,
mm.
wouldn't you? You
Could
know,
be.
you would be raped and murdered. You would be
Yeah.
another Hitler. You'd have to be you know what I mean? So that really, I thought, well, no, you can't just reincarnate to famous
Mm,
people. I'm terribly sorry. But however, I do believe the conscious being, the consciousness itself from source, experiences all of these
mm,
aspects.
mm,
And maybe we just connect to what they label the Akashic records, and we pick up experiences, and
mm,
we our ego likes to be grandiose. And oh, I was Cleopatra. I'm sure I was just a bum, if there is such thing as past. I was just a bum on the street, called or a convict or a
yeah.
mass killer or something like that. I must have been one of those anarchists, more likely. So, but
Yeah.
bringing it together, Ron. I want to take it to the next level. I mean, you went in. I mean, I have a great love of the Loch Ness monster. Now,
Mm,
guys, I've admitted it on Inception podcast, and
mm,
I admit it here. I remember seeing that photograph donkeys years ago, like hundreds of years ago, that came out of the Loch Ness monster. And maybe because I was intuitive as a young person, I wasn't that old. I said it was true. I
mm,
just had a knowing when things were true.
mm.
Like I knew dead people were true. Sorry, you're not dead. I know. I knew, the Fae were true. I knew. Tell me about the Loch Ness monster. Um, do you believe it's real? And have you ever experienced the eeriness? Have you ever been
Well,
there?
I mean, there are, Loch Ness monsters are most famous, but there are monsters in lochs, many parts of Scotland actually.
Yeah.
And, I went up there, organised an expedition up to Loch Morra, which is further north, up west, which has Morag the monster um, there by tradition. And people in recent years have claimed to actually have seen it and even being bumped by it in their boat. So, yeah, I mean, it is eerie. I mean, Loch Ness, yeah, is eerie. Loch Morra is eerie. So I do believe that people are having an experience of some sort.
Mm,
What is it? This is where you come back to. This is where I come back to the UFO thing. Somebody sees a UFO, nobody else sees it. Where
mm,
does it go? People see the Loch Ness monster, but where does it go? It doesn't seem to be there when people go looking for it, which suggests, if people are not imagining it,
mm,
and given all the reports that we've had,
mhm.
from there, and from monsters across the world. I
Yeah.
think that's this again comes back to the interdimensional,
Yeah.
or back in
Mm.
time, or window into whatever. I mean, something's going on there, and
Can I jump in there? Let's just go back to the Loch Ness for the moment, and then I want to go to dragons because they're coming up a lot lately for some unknown reason. That first picture that come out, was that kosher? Was that real? That
was
picture?
that the surgeon's photo, the
I think
original one back in
the
1934? Yeah.
first, yeah, that thing.
That seems to have been fake, doesn't it? I mean, it seems
Okay,
pretty much established
right.
that that was a fake. But there's been, other photos and video. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what's taken. Some people just dismiss it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen a photo or a bit of video that has had everybody saying, yeah, that is definitely a moving, breathing monster, for want of a better word, you know. So, I mean, you know, people never be convinced by it
Mhm.
because they've never been able to find any actual physical evidence,
Mhm.
which suggests, again, you know, which suggests to me, and maybe people take a completely different view, obviously, that we're dealing with some kind of, I'll say, psychical or supernatural phenomenon, just
Mm.
something, you know, something in a like a ghost report, guys, but just in a different context.
I'm with you now. I'm with you. Oh, you know, I mean, I've got to ask, especially because um, the monsters that in your native land of Scotland, your country, not my country. You notice how I say that, your country, not I'm in England, you're in Scotland, you're another country to me. Um, did you have dragons there?
There are reports of dragons in Scotland. Yep, absolutely. And you know, there's a story about, well, I mean, going back into the 1100s, of
Mhm.
a knight fighting a dragon, which is what they used to call them, worms. I don't know if it is in England, but they were called worms in Scotland. But you know, that was
Really?
just
Dragon? Well, hold on. Pump the
just
brakes there.
yeah.
Dragons were called worms,
Yeah, worm was yeah, was a word used for dragons, worms.
but
So I
not
mean, there
as.
is,
Is that an English word or was? Okay, okay. I
I
mean,
think
I
it's
was
a Anglo-Saxon word, probably.
Anglo-Saxon. Okay.
Probably. Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, so yeah, they're called worms. So you get places like worm law. Law's a word for hill. Used to be used in Scotland for hill. Worm law, which was really just dragon hill. Yeah,
Mm.
so I mean, there's an account from about 1100s of a knight having a fight with a dragon in the borders. And in fact, if you go down to one of the churches, so I'm just trying to remember the name now, and
Mm.
it's got a plaque above the door which actually shows the it's an old plaque which say plaque like a stone plaque,
Yeah.
which shows a scene of this knight fighting this dragon. So
Hmm.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, there is you know, that tradition in Scotland's kind of been lost for some reason. I
Hmm.
don't know why, but I mean, and there are other accounts of dragons being driven off, you know, because they've been attacking cattle and so on. Yeah, so we do have a dragon tradition.
I mean, because another thing, I mean, you know, there is no such thing. I will say it's a stupid question. If you're curious and you're trying to find the truth of your reality, you've got to ask questions that I'm coming up with now. You know, what popped into my limited mind here is we got dinosaurs. We had
Mm,
dinosaurs, which were like dragons. Hello.
mhm,
And, you know, they give you the narrative of how they were killed off or whatever. But what if they were not killed off?
mm,
What if
right,
not? I mean, the oceans, they haven't even explored all the oceans. Come on,
mm,
right?
mm,
I mean, when we had dinosaurs, they labeled dinosaurs, they were flying, they were land, they were
mhm,
vegetarians, they were
mhm,
carnivores, there were sea ones, there were
mhm,
water dinosaurs. So
mhm.
we could just say, because we can make this shit up as we go along, like the mainstream media does, and the scientists do. Why can't they just be another form of dinosaurs that never become extinct? The dragons.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Why
think,
not?
you know, why not? I mean, you know, that's one certainly one possibility.
The
I
dragons have
mean,
always been here, not just in
yeah,
Scotland, Ireland, and
yeah,
Wales.
yeah, yeah.
Since records have been recorded all the way back, even
Mhm,
in biblical scripture,
mhm,
in Indian scripture, dragons in the sky, dragons in the sea, the
mhm,
fire, the fire.
mhm, mhm.
Maybe there were flying dragons. Why
Well,
not? Because it's
who knows?
dinosaurs, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm open
Dinosaurs.
to the possibility.
Yeah. I mean, so what I'm trying to do is say, even though people poo-poo this, oh, it's mythology. Well, it's not frigging mythology that dinosaurs and
No.
pterodactyls flew in the sky
Mhm,
they were here. Um, and who knows, maybe some of them did have fire coming out of them. Who knows? So why
yeah,
it's not beyond the realms of possibilities that
yeah.
the ones in the oceans, no matter what, like Earth catalytic, whatever Trevor event happened, ice age, whatever
Mhm,
age, if they're deep down in the ocean, well, then
mhm.
they wouldn't become extinct and they could just pop back up again. That's my
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. Yeah, but a lot of these traditions, well, I say traditions, but I mean, the stories aren't all that old. They were written down,
Mm,
in Scotland and elsewhere. So,
mm.
I mean,
Because there was George, I remember at school, George and the Dragon. Is that English, Irish, Scottish, or
yes,
Wales? What's that?
yeah,
Is that
English. Well, it's
English?
English, and, but yeah, there is a more widespread tradition, you
Mm,
know,
mm.
George killing off the
George
dragon.
and the Dragon. Okay, I'm going to ask you another one. We've got to do this because we're going into the elementals, the fae, and the paranormal world. What about the giants, Ron? Have you ever come across anything for your research about? Being from an Irish family, I'm aware of the Irish giants, and the giants of the UK as well. Have you come across any information on the giants that will be?
Well, somebody, funnily enough, somebody did report within the last, let me think, trying to remember when the chap wrote to me about 15 years ago.
Mm,
He reported seeing these giants, a group of giants walking on the Orkney Islands,
mm-hmm.
you know, and he said they were huge figures. But I mean, that's, I thought it was really odd because, I mean, that is the only actual, um, account that I've had in recent years. I mean, I've read obviously,
Yeah.
about alleged races of giants, but
Mm,
that's the first time I actually had anybody ever saying
mm.
to me they'd seen this family of giants, walking down a hill, and
Could that make you think, if we look at what's happening now with the world consciousness, and I say there's one Earth and billions of worlds, okay? It's called the quantum bubble. And it seems like at the moment, from what I'm hearing from others, including myself, everyone's experiencing paranormal things like no time before. Could it
mm,
be like in the quantum bubble world that these worlds are colliding now,
mm,
and we're just experiencing, I mean, UFOs, we've always had the spirit world and UFOs, but you've got, giants, dragons, Bigfoot, skinwalker, you've got all of these things seem to be coming into. I've had reports coming to me from of people experiencing really weird looking elementals from the fae,
mm-hmm,
trickster ones actually
mm-hmm,
coming through. They're starting to see, there are changing, that people call them shapeshifters, but don't take that in a negative way. They come one form, they go to, now this is recent.
mm-hmm,
People are reporting, and to me, they're experiencing this. It's happening.
mm.
So on the back of that statement, to tie everything up to close the show, Ron, what do you think's happening, and what do you think's coming, if anything?
Well, I mean, I certainly agree that people, more people having more experiences.
Mm,
I can just, I simply went and buy all the UFO reports, for example.
mm,
Definitely say that in general, these have increased significantly since
mm,
I've been interested in the
mm,
subject. So, and as we talked about this idea of looking into other dimensions or crisscrossing with other universes, other dimensions, I mean, yeah, things are opening up. And I think, I don't know whether we're going to have a sudden revelation. I think we maybe are moving towards a bigger revelation.
mm,
But I think, people are actually having more experiences, and gradually, bit by bit, people's um, concept of the world or the kind of universe that we're living in is opening up.
mm.
I mean, I'm nothing against science, but Dad was a scientist. But I do think, science has its limitations. It
Yes.
focuses on what is our everyday reality.
Mhm,
It doesn't take a look at, what else might be out there that,
mhm,
you can't actually just measure or quantify, but
mhm.
nonetheless is something that people have an experience of. And to my
Yeah,
mind, that's just as important.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Well, Ron, thank you for the most interesting conversation. It's been lots of fun as normal. But before we go, you can sell your wares, haul yourself out, name your books to the audience, and where can they get hold of them? Come on.
Well, the best place to go is on Amazon, which does have a list of my books, which are still for sale, including Alien Spirits, UFO Scotland, Famous Scots and the Supernatural, Edinburgh After Dark, which is about the supernatural in Edinburgh, and so on. So, yeah, if you're interested in anything I've talked about, then, please go ahead and look up and, yeah.
You'll find him on Facebook as well, but I recommend
On Facebook
get
too,
hold
yeah.
of his books. I love Ron's approach. His approach in this field is in, and he covers all fields. He's not limited to one little box. He covers all the paranormal, and it can open your mind. Even just have a good read. But definitely Alien Spirits. You've got to read that one. On that note, thank you very much, Ron. I'll have to bring you back on the show a bit down the line.
Come on.
We'll have another chat, and we'll really get into it. And thank you everyone for watching Open Minds. And we're back next Sunday, all being well. So I'm Gloria. This is Open Minds live chat show. Until the next time, bye guys.